Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Rotoworld Football Show. It is our Week 7 preview episode. I am Patrick Daugherty, joined as always by Denny Carter and Kyle Dvorchak. We're breaking down the entire slate, save for Thursday Night Football. That's going to be happening before you hear this episode, but Denny and I broke that down on Tuesday. If you want to check it out, Bengals versus the Steelers. I definitely remember who was playing on Thursday night. I remember who's playing all day Sunday and all day Monday. We have a Monday quadruple header coming your way. We have the Bucs at the Lions, a 52.5-point game total. We're finally getting back in to real American sports, real American culture, real American football. That includes the highest total game of the entire season. The Commanders at the Cowboys, two teams just not playing defense. CeeDee Lamb, we're hoping coming back for the Dallas Cowboys. Chargers, Colts, a great game. Rams and Jaguars playing in London for the 47th consecutive week. It's a jam-packed slate this week. Unfortunately, it's an injury-filled slate as well. A lot of big names either not practicing or trying to come back after absences. Kyler Murray, Chuba Hubbard. The Vikings don't know what to do at quarterback. We're going to get to the Vikings quarterback situation a little later in the show. Carson Wentz versus J.J. McCarthy. But Denny, it sounds like there were some developments in this battle, quote-unquote, during the bye week that sounded very not ominous at all for J.J. McCarthy.
Yeah, I think ideally what you want is your second-year quarterback to have to work on his fundamentals in the middle of his second season. And that's what you have in Minnesota. Kevin O'Connell told The Athletic the other day that the team spent the bye week, quote, building that foundation back up for J.J. McCarthy after the ankle injury that may or may not have been serious. It's still no way to know.
I mean, listen, all I'm going to say is he got up immediately and walked normally. And then there was a sideline report the following week, Tracy Wolfson talking about how healthy he was. I feel like I'm going crazy. Continue.
I felt like that was Kevin O'Connell saying he's not there yet. Also, this story from The Athletic that I read the other day, it mentioned the fact that Kevin O'Connell got before the assembled press in the summer after a very rough training camp session with McCarthy. And he said, the sky's not falling, guys. If I had seen that, I kind of would have known it's over. Like, I mean, that to me was a sign that, like, you can't be going into the season with this kid. So I would say that they're going to find any reason to keep him on the bench for as long as they can.
My favorite J.J. McCarthy story from the summer was quite literally just a tweet from one of the beat reporters. I won't single them out. I'm sure they weren't the only one, but it was about as clear as day. It's, let's get this clear. Or maybe it was like, let's get one thing clear. J.J. McCarthy is not struggling. It was the most my J.J. McCarthy is not struggling t-shirt is raising more questions or is answering the questions it's already raised or whatever that I've ever seen. It was at that moment that I started to feel a spooky feeling in my gut.
Yeah. Is he doing well? Absolutely not. But he's not. There's no struggle. There's no struggle.
The best sign for J.J. McCarthy's career future is that Carson Wentz spent most of weeks 4 and 5 just kind of like splintering apart like a wooden boat. And everyone's like, I think they're still going to start Wentz coming out of the bye week. And looks like they're still going to start Wentz. It has not been officialized, which is not an actual word. It's not been confirmed. We'll talk about that more later in the show. Now it's Bucs. Now it's Lions. With nearly their entire skill core injured in one form or another, Denny Carter, Tampa visits the Lions for the fantasy game of the week. I said before I knew Cowboys Commanders was even higher totaled. It's roughly 5.5-point underdogs on the road, Tampa, with Emeka Egbuka, Bucky Irving, and Chris Godwin, all either on the wrong side of questionable or already officially ruled out. Is there anyone we can start behind Rachaad White and a hopefully returning Mike Evans? Early signs are that Mike Evans will be back.
All right. I have a bunch of notes here. I'll just get through them, and then we can discuss. K-Dot and Cardio Cade has been more than Cardio Cade over the past 2 games. He's been targeted on 26% of his routes over those 2 games. Outrageous. That's 11 targets over 2 games. Really, what you're looking at with him usually is a 10% target per route run rate. So that's really good. Tez Johnson last week led the team in wide receiver routes and air yards. Sterling Shepard will be in a full-time role again this week against a pass funnel Detroit defense. The game total is very high. And I wanted to mention this little stat here. Nearly 70% of Tampa's targets go to wide receivers. That's the 3rd highest rate in the NFL. Somebody's going to get there. Like if we pick right, it could be real fun for one of these guys. I kind of like Tez Johnson. I feel like there's some vibes there that might be good.
Denny, your last stat on 70% of the targets going the wide receiver's way. Like, wow, I wish someone had thought of this before, that maybe real NFL offense involves targeting what are known as wide receivers instead of tight ends and running backs, H-backs, and like direct snaps to fullbacks and to tight ends, and Tyler Warren somehow doing all of this on one play. Just target the wide receivers. Have you ever thought of that before? That if you target, and if you sacrifice some fake short area efficiency, that if you actually throw down the field to wide receivers, you might actually score more points.
And that's what Tez Johnson does. I mean, he gets open downfield, and we know Baker likes to let it rip. So I think he'll have his chances.
Yeah, I will note Baker's back to fully letting it rip. I believe he leads the league in deep throw rate, and he leads the league by a wide margin in deep touchdowns. He has like twice as many deep touchdowns as any other quarterback in the NFL right now. He's always gotten the message, like you said, Pat, ever since he joined Tampa Bay, he's gotten the message about throwing it to his wide receivers, but he's done it in a variety of different ways. Last year, it was that quick hitting check down adjacent, more so his wide receivers were open, short, and intermediate.
Liam Cohen, fake sharp.
Well, it worked really well last year as a thing. It was his best year of his career, but he's showing that he is super, super adaptable. Because 2 years ago, under Canales, it was more of the deep bomb stuff. And now we've fully returned to that. It's one, a credit to Baker, just that he can win in almost any capacity. And two, credit to his arm that he's winning with such good deep stuff. So I agree. I'm like excited to see what Tez Johnson can do. He was a fun prospect. Curious,
no one mentioned Cameron Johnson, but that's enough on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Kyle, are the Lions sort of quietly giving up on the pass? I can't remember where I saw the stat. Is their first down pass rate, like, isn't that suddenly like fallen through the floor? Jared Goff's actually still throwing for a decent amount of touchdowns. The attempts in general are not like falling off a cliff, but they've been way less aggressive on first down. What are the smoke signals coming out of this Lions offensively? It had some mixed performances over the past month.
Yeah, I did not realize how much more run heavy they had gotten until you sent me this prompt for this. And you're totally right. So last year they were still run first or run oriented. You'd call it a -3% pass rate over expected. That's dropped to -6% this year. They are right now dead last in the NFL by a pretty wide margin in pass rate on first and second down, which is kind of frustrating because they are the second most efficient offense passing on first and second down. Part of that is if you don't do something a lot, you get to choose your spots quite well. You're going to be efficient. It's like the Ryan Tannehill run, pass. He looks really great when he passed in 2018 or whatever. There's a reason he didn't pass a lot. I don't think that's quite what's going on here. I'm not going to besmirch the Lions and say that the run is entirely responsible for the passing success. It's helping a little bit, but I do think they should ease up slightly. And especially one thing, Pat, you pointed out is when they get a lead, usually when they get a lead, they'll still leave their foot on the gas a little bit. They don't completely shell up. They're doing that a little bit more this year. When they've had a lead this season, they've passed on 44% of their plays. That was 48% last year, which isn't a massive change. But I think it's another sign of the times that losing Ben Johnson, it did not crater this offense by any means, but there have been some tweaks. And I think a lack of aggression in terms of just the run-pass split is a tweak that they've had. Like you said, what does this mean for fantasy? It doesn't change who you're starting really at all. The exception of maybe JMO, they still go to exclusively like 4 players on this offense, and they're super efficient when they do. But the complexion of the offense is changed at least a little bit compared to last year.
Yeah, I feel like they just don't have the mixture quite right, and they're not dictating the tempo and pace of play to the extent they did under Ben Johnson, and they just might have to do a little more tweaking. Tampa this week, then a rough matchup after the bye with the Vikings, then a great matchup with the Commanders. We'll be following the Lions very closely. Denny, that includes Sam Laporta. He's just one of those guys like no one talks about anymore. Like I don't ever write about him in my article. We don't ever talk about him on the show because this is kind of like, he's Sam Laporta, 6 catches for 45 yards. Is there any updates on Sam Laporta, or is it still the 6 catches for 45 yards?
It's something like that. By the way, our analytics king, Dan Campbell, needs to do the right thing and seize this offense and just run it himself, because this offense is getting away with it, but this structurally it's not good. All right, back to Laporta. So over the past 2 games, we have seen his targets per route run spike to 26%. That's really good, way higher than it usually is. 10 catches for 147 yards over that stretch, 2 touchdowns. Only Dallas Goedert and Michael Mayer are above him in targets per route run. I think you can just kind of start them, especially in this environment. I mean, with tight ends, generally, we want our tight ends to be, especially in high scoring situations and environments like this. So you feel good about Laporta, I think.
Well, two things with Laporta. We just take it for granted that we start him. Also, just take it for granted that he's not good. And that's because just nothing has mattered at tight end this year. Like Sam Laporta, a lot of years would be like the QB 11 or 12. Right now, he's just still tight end. He's still like in the tight end 5 to 7 range. And it's a really, really bad year for tight end.
Did you mean to say you took it for granted that he is good, or do you not think he's good?
No, he's not good. The campaign he has this year would normally be like the tight end 11 season. He's like the tight end 5 right now.
I think he's pretty good.
He's fine.
Name 3 good tight ends.
Yeah, exactly. You can't.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
What?
That's the thing.
All right.
Tyler Warren, George Kittle, the 5 games he's going to play the rest of the year, and that's about it. Tucker Kraft, the 9 targets he's going to get the rest of the season.
Brock Bowers, Trey McBride.
Brock Bowers. I remember Brock Bowers. Brock Bowers was an American football tight end.
He was the most American football player. We lost him so soon.
The most American game is, of course, Commanders Cowboys. With the Cowboys still playing no defense and hoping to get CeeDee Lamb back for Week 7, it appears he's going to play. Washington arrives in Dallas, accompanied by the week's highest over/under, as producer Adam reminded me before the show, highest of the year. Denny, what would Lamb's return? What do we think it will do? Because we think he's going to play due to the target allocation and an offense that was getting a bit squirrely during his absence. By squirrely, I mean Jalen Tolbert pop-up games, Ryan Flournoy pop-up games. A lot of strange stuff going on.
The George Pickens scam is over. If Lamb returns,
got to come off immediately. Not a scam. George Pickens actually good.
Yeah, you're right. I shouldn't call it a scam. I should say this thing where he's the best receiver in the NFL. That's over.
The thing where he's the Rico Dowdle of wide receivers is what you're saying.
Yeah. Because here are the numbers, the splits here. So without CeeDee Lamb on the field, George Pickens sees 50% of the team's air yards. He's targeted on 27% of his routes. With CeeDee Lamb on the field, Pickens has 24% of the air yards. So that's chopped in half, and a 14% target per route run rate. I mean, it's a good environment. Like, you're obviously starting him, but you're just not getting like 102 here, you know.
So we're good to confirm that we're starting George Pickens in the 54.5 game total game. Denny,
you asked me. I'm just saying,
I'm with Denny here that like we should be grateful. We should be happy for the George Pickens we got, and not sad for the George Pickens we're about to lose. In the sense of CeeDee big dogged him. Like CeeDee made him look like a
gonna cut you off immediately. It was 2 games. His first 2 games with the team. The ultimate small sample size, like all-star thing there going on. And George Pickens has now proven himself to Dak Prescott. He's proven himself to shoddy. #shoddy. And I do think things will be different. Clearly, it's an offense. They have no defense. They're passing constantly. It's the class of receiver core. I feel like it's big enough for the 2 of them. I think it would be incorrect to assume it's just going to go back to weeks 1 and 2, George Pickens.
I mean, certainly not this week. Obviously, like this week is going to be awesome.
I hope not. I'm just trying to adjust the folks' expectations here.
Still a top 18 wide receiver, in my opinion. Kyle is Bill, still a top 18 running back. Touches continue to go up. Snaps continue to go up. Fumbles continue to go up. He had 2 of them in week 6. Second one was not credited to him, was not really his fault. It was more Jaden Daniels' fault.
Wait, how does he have 2 of them if it was neither his fault?
Anytime a running back is adjacent to a fumble, the coaches just immediately cut them and like the credit the fumble to him. It's like, dude, like Jaden didn't hand the ball to me. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it like squirted out of Jaden's hands as he was handing it off. And
they continue to give him the ball after his fumble that was his fault. Kyle, are we nervous? How do we feel? Chris Rodriguez not practicing again this week.
Yeah. So that I think what we saw was that they are relatively confident that the fumbles, I don't want to say are like a small sample thing. They are, to be clear, but that it's just not worth going to anyone else if the options would be Jeremy McNichols or potentially Chris Rodriguez. I would say that we saw him come out and immediately get the next carry after the actual fumble that was his. And in week 5, he goes out and, like you said, he fumbles. And week 6, he sets season highs across the board in route rate, total carries, carry share, snap share, every way we have to measure how much of the backfield of the snaps he saw. he increased it despite fumbling in week 5. And then even despite fumbling again in week 6, they gave him the next carry. So to me, this is a little bit of caution, right? But the second fumble wasn't credit to him, wasn't his fault. And then,
let me be clear, it was not his fault.
No.
And then even, I think it was like this morning, or maybe it was a quote from earlier this week, Cliff Kingsbury said specifically that they still have confidence in him. Of course, that's what he's going to say. He's a young player. They're not going to be like, we've lost all faith in this guy. But
some teams would say that.
I know, like they could have. Some coaches will say that. So I feel pretty good about treating him as at least, in this game environment, guy who gets all the snaps in this game environment is low-key an RB1. Maybe we don't jump the shark quite yet, but if he turns in a top 12 performance, no one will be surprised.
Denny pointed out on our Tuesday show, by the way, that Mike Vrabel in New England has finally admitted that their running backs are worried too much about fumbling.
Right.
I think can we go back to finally like the glory days of like Earl Campbell, Eric Dickerson, Adrian Peterson, were like, it was just price of doing elite running back business. They were going to fumble sometimes.
It happens sometimes.
It happens sometimes when you handle the ball 30 times a game. You might drop it occasionally.
Right.
That this culture is paralyzing the NFL. Turnover avoidance, like it is paralyzing the NFL.
You're right.
In the name of fake efficiency, as I will call it.
Oh man,
we need to turn the ball over a lot more. That's what I'm telling my team.
Yeah, we got to ramp up the turnovers.
Get him going.
Pat, to the point you made before, the correct number of interceptions is never ever 0. I can promise you that. It's not a high number. We're not, optimizing for interceptions, but it's not 0. I promise you that.
Same with fumbles. Maybe don't carry it like a loaf of bread. I'm looking at you, LaShawn McCoy. Kyle, what is going on with the targets in this Commandos offense? Terry McLaurin, I can't even keep track of what he's on week 5 of not getting sports hernia surgery. It seems like he might finally play this time though. Deebo Samuel.
Hold on there, partner. He was held out of practice on Thursday after returning for a limited session on Wednesday. Wednesdays, I don't know if their practice was a walkthrough. Typically, Wednesdays are walkthroughs or at least a lighter session. So it could be that they just overestimated what he was capable of doing. But then Thursday DNP, players who have not played for weeks and are not practicing on Thursday, I'm just purely spitballing, are probably like 10% to play. So
really important update. And Deebo Samuel, by the way, barely appeared like ambulatory Monday night as he played through his heel injury. So yeah, what is going on?
And Deebo is still not practicing either, although this is the routine I believe they gave him last week as well, which is probably DNP limited. Maybe they list him as questionable and he probably plays. And he's almost certainly going to try and gut it out because I don't think Terry McLaurin plays. Deebo's dominating targets in the absence of Terry McLaurin. I think it's just a matter of how healthy is he and how much can he continue to play through this heel injury. But until the day they make him inactive, you have to play him as the number 1 receiver in a game with a 54.5 game total. There is no option, unless he's not playing, obviously, but to put him in your lineups. After that, Zach Ertz in the 3 games without Deebo Samuel has one game. I think it was the most recent game with a target share north of 20%. It was well north of 20% last week. Chris Moore ended up being the team's number 2 receiver, also logs a target share north of 20%. Believe he went 3 for 46 and 1. It's a fun game. You can play, even if it's journeyman wide receiver Chris Moore, you can play him in your 14-team 2-flex type of leagues. And Zach Ertz in this game environment is as good a bet to score a touchdown as basically any non-top 3 fantasy tight end. So I think that's the roundup of who you're playing or considering at least.
Every name you said after Zach Ertz sounded like showdown slate, 2-game slate. I know they're playing 7 Monday Night Football games on Monday, but still
they break them up though. You've got the Monday Night Turbo, you've got the Monday Night Mini, you got the Monday Night Late slate.
Of course, the famous Monday Night Yappy. We'll keep you all updated on their health status though on Rotoworld.com. Looking more and more like an elite team with each passing week, the Indiana Jones-led Colts visit a Chargers team that's just getting. Let me get my binoculars. Just getting by a surprising 1.5-point underdogs. Where's this game at, Kyle? The big development here, of course, is the sudden emergence of Kamani Vidal as a fantasy factor. Just 1 year later than expected. We were not wrong. We were only early. How good was the usage from a snaps and routes perspective? And is it something that feels repeatable in fantasy?
Pat, I'll have you know, I caught a typo in one of these write-ups, and I didn't mention it because I want it to be a landmine you step on. I'm not going to tell you what game it's coming in. But I hope you...
Good to know. I'm Ron Burgundy, question mark.
Right. It's going to be an I'm Ron Burgundy type of statement. I hope it's nothing bad. It's funny.
It will lead to the end of Pat's career.
It will. As far as Kamani Vidal's career, this is what, like Pat said, this is what I was hoping for last year. He comes out in week 6, if I'm calibrating my weeks correctly, 67% of the snaps, 72% of the carries, 54% of the routes. That's like workhorse adjacent type of stuff, albeit the production itself came against the Miami Dolphins. For my money, pound for pound, the worst run defense in the NFL. By most metrics, a bottom 2, 3, 4, or 5 defense. I know pretty for sure. I would have said this about Rico too, and I would have been wrong. I'm pretty sure we're not going to get a repeat performance in terms of the efficiency and the fantasy points from Kamani Vidal, but you also don't need to play him as your RB2. Guys who get all the work on competent offenses are almost universally top 24 running backs, and I think that's how we should treat him this week.
Yeah, that was a more stunning usage triumph than I think anyone thought possible, where there were some people that saw the Kamani Vidal takeover coming. I just think everyone thought it'd still be more 50-50, and it just was not. Hassan Haskins is apparently a role player. Denny, have we seen enough from Daniel Indiana Jones to declare him a QB1, or are both his floor and ceiling just not quite high enough? He's been hanging around like that QB 10 to 12 range. This is a very high total game, though.
You feel fine about starting him in 12-team leagues. Like in a league where I lost Joe Burrow, I picked him up and I'm just playing him every week. And sometimes you get those 14 points and sometimes you get 23, and I guess you can live with either. I mean, he's 7th in overall passing yards. He's 5th in adjusted yards per attempt. The running is not really there like I thought it might be. I thought we were going to get like that 2022 Daniel Jones, like 10 rushes a game sort of business.
I think what maybe happened, Denny, is that they were doing it in weeks 1 and 2, and then they found out he was actually sort of good, and now they don't want him to get hurt.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you don't have to put your quarterback in those situations, then I guess you simply just don't do that. Daniel Jones has a scramble rate of 5%, which ranks 22nd out of 33 qualifying quarterbacks. So like I said, the running is just not quite there. The Colts have a 56% neutral pass rate, which is like middle of the pack. They are in this game facing a Chargers defense that can be described as a pass funnel, although not an extreme one. It's a good environment. I'm playing them in that 12-team league that I referenced. I'm playing them easily.
And you're losing, but that's all right. No, I've got him ranked. I think
I'm playing you actually.
Oh, it's that league. All right.
You're losing big time, buddy.
Yeah.
Pretty sure is that the league Pat is juggernaut in?
I'm juggernauting several leagues, but now the injuries are juggernauting me.
I'm not enjoying playing against Pat this year.
You're not enjoying the Pat or not?
I will say I have a lot of 5-1 teams that don't seem like they're going to go 5-1 over their next 6 games.
Yeah, I've got a lot of 5-1 teams that may have had Puka Nacua and Garrett Wilson and Bucky Irving. Sorry, I did the Chuba joke with Puka, by the way. But a lot of injuries taking a toll. That included in Los Angeles last week. Quentin Johnston sat out, Kyle. We got the Ladisance. People have been begging, crying, screaming for the Ladisance. They got it, but only in QJ's absence. He's been practicing. He's probably going to be back. We don't know for sure. Jim Harbaugh is a crazy person. He does things his own way. But if he's back, it did seem minor with Quentin Johnston. Do things just immediately revert to the pre-week 6 norm in this Chargers receiver corps?
Look, I wanna do your George Pickens and be like, it was only the first 5 weeks of the season that he wasn't good or whatever. For Pickens, it was only 2. But like QJ played well for I don't say every snap, right? But he played well to the point where I think you can't put that genie back in the bottle entirely. Maybe this spurs some movement for Ladd, but I don't think we're ever getting back to the point where I thought we would be when I drafted him at the 2-3 turn. I think most notably what we saw last week was just a focus on getting Ladd the ball. He had a first read target share of 27%. That was up from 20% on the dot over the first 5 weeks of the season. 20% first read target share is not bad, but I mean, it's what you see from number 2 or number 3 wide receivers on teams that throw to receivers a lot. So maybe the happy medium is somewhere in between, but I think to be pragmatic, we probably should at least right now say 5 weeks of data is a lot more impactful than 1 week. And the 1 week obviously came without QJ. So I'm kind of sadly projecting it to be very similar to pre-QJ injury stuff.
I am too. I have Johnston as the highest ranked Chargers receiver right now. I don't feel great about it, but 5 weeks, last time I checked, is a lot more than 1 week. And I just don't know why it would suddenly revert back. I guess if you were really trying to make a copium case, you'd be like, Jim Harbaugh needed to be reminded of what Ladd McConkey was capable of. And he did see that last week. I just think it would be silly to project Ladd ahead of Quentin Johnston after what we saw the first 5 games.
Harbaugh said that Ladd McConkey's game-winning catch and run to set up the field goal in the fourth quarter will be seared into his brain until he is dead.
He said until they throw dirt over me. He could possibly still be living in that scenario.
That would be terrible. It's spooky season now.
Be very bad. Hopefully Jim Harbaugh is never buried alive. That would be things would have gone very, very wrong then.
Yeah.
By the way, that 5% scramble rate for Daniel Jones, can we at least get that up to like Carson Wentz levels?
I know, man. I know.
Like, totally.
Although I will say, like, the Colts have been so good that it's like, why would he be out there like risking life and limb?
You say it's like why? I say, like, why are we in London for the 448th time already this season? Another London game, 9:30 Eastern. Yay! Here comes the people tweeting at me. Actually, I like it. I don't care. I do not care that you like it.
Can I say something?
We'll let you say it. Go for it.
You like it?
I forget that they're on.
Denny, based on our group chats and when you show up at 11:30 and you're like, what's going on? I believe it.
I forget because, like, I'll sit down, like I'll do like the exercise bike and some push-ups or whatever, and then I'll take a shower, and then like I'll get like an update on my phone, and I'm like, the who are playing the what? Where? It's in the third. It's 2 minutes left in the third quarter. Oh my God! I totally forgot.
Denny's like, what is Hotspur Stadium? Headed overseas after a mixed weeks after both. Gosh darn it! I cannot write that. I headed overseas after mixed week 6 performances. It was a plural. The Rams are 3-point favorites against the Jaguars. Kyle, with Puka Nacua expected to be sidelined with an ankle injury, can fantasy managers get weird with players like a returning Tutu Atwell back from a hamstring injury, or perhaps even Jordan Whittington, who anytime someone gets hurt seems to immediately get spammed targets in this Rams offense?
Yeah, I don't think there's a clear winner outside of Davante Adams, who, if they're going to like move anybody into let's spam easy button targets, just make it Davante Adams. Like, don't mess around with like, we think Jordan Whittington can play the Puka Nacua role. I don't care if he, in terms of the proportion of his talent that could be allocated to the Puka role versus something else, is a better fit. There is more talent in any individual aspect of Davante Adams' game than any other player on this team now that Puka's out. I think he's the clear winner. But with that being said, there are at least more routes to go around. And Davante was doing a lot of stuff on his own. He can't entirely take over. Like, he's not going to have an 80% target share. And I think, frankly, it probably gets split. Because as you pointed out, Jordan Whittington, in terms of how they've used him, has a slightly lower, but a similar ADOT over the past 2 years to Puka in terms of they just get him the ball on short and intermediate stuff, and they target him quite easily. Tutu's the opposite. He is still plays a decent amount of the slot, but is a true speedster field stretcher. I think that's the 3, assuming Tutu's healthy, that's the 3 wide receiver set. I don't think there's a clear winner. I would probably, as you pointed out, I think on our Monday show, take the flyer on Tutu, because if one of these guys is going to pop a 50-yard touchdown, it's like very clearly Tutu. He does that at a like surprising clip when they actually play him. It'll probably end up in frustration, but if anyone's going to win in your matchup and he's a player you can be having on the waiver wire, that guy's probably Tutu.
I will say, if you're really desperate, like I'm totally rocked by injuries in a few, even 12-team leagues. I think Jordan Whittington, you could also construct a case like a second flex who could easily, have 13 PPR points. Like, it's not outlandish. They've been trying to get the ball to Tyler Higbee more.
I mean, Adams is going to see 18 targets. That's what.
Well, see, I mean, Adams, he hasn't done it so far this year. He hasn't popped off kind of in any game. The floor has remained quite high. The usage has remained pretty solid. He hasn't done it yet.
He leads.
I think it's just. I mean, we saw this with Cooper Kupp. I think Cooper Kupp had the most targets in a single game last year, and he was big dogged by Puka for every game that Puka was active for. But the one game that Cooper got to play that Puka wasn't there was one of the greatest fantasy games of the year. And I think that's what we'll see with Davante, except Davante still has more juice than Cooper.
You just big dog Denny on a stat, by the way. Denny,
that's okay. No, I unless I misread it, Davante Adams leads the NFL in air yards.
Oh, yeah, he's got a ton of targets. He's playing good.
Sounds like he might be washed then because he hasn't really done anything with them. Denny, the Jags are talking about getting Travis Hunter more first read looks. Is this production or lack thereof a believe it when you see it at this point? Or can we take hope from these words that are just words, they are not actions, from Coach Liam Cohen?
You have to see it first before you can believe it, because the usage has been, let's just say, spotty, just to be generous.
You don't have to be
Hunter's
generous.
only
As
being
someone who
targeted.
drafted a lot of Hunter, you can light on thick. It's fine.
I ended up drafting a little bit just under peer pressure from the Zoomers. Hunter is only being targeted on 19% of his routes. On the season, he has 22 first read targets to 21 for Parker Washington. Just so you guys know. And BTJ leads the team with 43 first read targets. So there's no question there. Let's see, Travis Hunter's route rate. We watched it go from 68% in the first 3 weeks to around 80% over the past 3 games. That's good. I really don't think he's anything more than a flex or a second flex right now, though.
Yeah, it's good to hear the words. I'm not going to believe it until I see the Jaguars actually implement this plan. They seem to love to be targeting like every other rando on the Hunter Long. Let's feed Hunter Long. Really, we got to feed De'Ami Brown. Like we have.
It's not a joke. Like
De'Ami
Parker
Brown.
Washington will probably be very close to Travis Hunter in targets at the end of the year.
So, elsewhere in this offense, it's Brian Thomas Jr., Kyle. Back-to-back weeks of new season high for yards. We're still sitting on 90, though, for the season high. If you told people it was week 7 and you would have a single 100-yard game from Brian Thomas Jr., they'd be very concerned. But can we consider him officially warming up? Maybe this whole team is kind of warming up as they get more on board with the Liam Cohen program.
Yeah, I mean, on the plus side, he's just playing meaningfully better. Like, he played like the worst 3 games of football, maybe of his career, in the first 3 games of the year. He's cleaned up the drops. He's playing a little more aggressive, getting his contested catches where, like, he just wasn't fighting for contested catches in the first 3 weeks. His contested catch rate is up meaningfully. He looks just a bit more into the idea of this offense. With that being said, he has exactly 24% of the targets in back-to-back-to-back games, which isn't bad. He's also got at least 33% of the air yards in those 3 games as well, but he's not completely dominating targets. Like, if you told me, look at what he did last year, what do you think his target share is this year? I'd say he could lead the league in target share. Like, obviously, especially if you told me Travis Hunter isn't doing anything, right? If you're telling me that he doesn't have a strong number 2 receiver to compete with, he could have been a 30% target share guy, and we're still not quite there yet. So I think the fact that he doesn't have that 90 or doesn't have a 100-yard game, 90 is the peak, maybe isn't awfully surprising given that he's not absolutely running away with the targets lead. Now there's a slight concern. I had all the first read stuff written down too, Denny. Denny beat me to the punch. But the fact that Brian Thomas Jr., at least in terms of what the offense is designed to do, is killing the rest of the receivers in first read target share. He's got 31% of them, and then it's just a mess. Not only does Travis Hunter and De'Ami Brown have 21 and 22, or maybe it's Parker Washington, but Parker Washington or De'Ami Brown, the third one that I didn't name, has 20. So they just have a bunch of wide receiver 3s essentially competing for targets. If they elevate Travis Hunter, but they don't move down the target shares of the other players, maybe that eats into BTJ's workload because the offense right now is purely designed to get him the ball. But what do you do with this information? You don't bench him. In fact, you're more confident just because he's playing better. And to me, that was the biggest issue. He wasn't playing well.
As we mentioned earlier, the Vikings appear to be committing to another week of Carson Wentz under center, Kyle. With Wentz doing a good job of supplying Justin Jefferson and TJ Hawkinson with looks, this has mostly worked out in fantasy, but does that maybe come to a screeching halt against an Eagles defense that is not playing to the level it did last year? It's still solid. It doesn't seem like a good matchup for Carson Wentz to me. That's kind of how I'll put it. But just it seems like you could take a lot of sacks against the Philadelphia Eagles. But how do we feel as fantasy managers about Carson Wentz probably making another start under center? Again, this has not been confirmed or is not official.
Yeah, it seems pretty likely. JJ McCarthy not practicing in full yet. I just don't see, like, if the injury is real, they're not going to rush
What happened to this ankle? I watched this happen. He got up and walked normally.
Yeah.
Like, I know every injury is different. I've had every kind of ankle sprain imaginable. Even like the minor ones, I don't get up and walk normally. All right, continue though.
And he's been out for a month and a half.
It's insane. All right, continue. Sorry.
Yeah, no matter what the angle is, he's not playing this week. I don't think there's any way around that. So, I mean, Carson Wentz, like you said, also banged up. He's going to be like the Theseus's ship of quarterbacks. Like, yeah, we replaced his shoulder mid-season, and then his groin blew out, but then he just got a new
we brought a new pine mast over from the colonies to replace the hull of Carson Wentz.
And yet he's thrown for 300 every game. Justin Jefferson eaten. We're all happy. And to me, you sort of pointed out something that I thought I was going to bring up, or at least I thought I would say, like, Eagles are going to eat him alive. He's a sack-taking merchant. He has the second or third highest pressure to sack rate in the NFL. He's been fine passing under pressure. It's specifically that he just waits till someone gets open when he's under pressure. and he waits. He takes a sack, right? He doesn't throw the ball away. He doesn't make really bad throws because he just waits to take a sack. The Eagles have not been a good pressure team this year. They're about dead average in pressure rate. They're about dead average in EPA per dropback allowed. This is what we saw. We've seen this exact pattern with the Eagles multiple times now, where I think at this point, it's 4 seasons ago, one of the best defenses in NFL history. I think that might have been the year they set the record for sacks through the postseason. And then the year after that, we see their defense fully regress, not because it was like, oh, they lost all of their starters. They had some turnover, right? They had some turnover in the coaching ranks as well, but because defensive performances year to year are really hard to hold up, especially when you're going from being maybe the best defense in the NFL, maybe one of the best defenses in NFL history, to trying to repeat that feat. Very difficult. So I think right now they are, by all accounts, playing as a truly average defense. And if you told me Carson Wentz gets an average amount of clean pockets, I think he's going to at least turn, in terms of fantasy points, make everyone happy.
You know that Justin Jefferson is just praying he gets another week of Wentz ball. He
Yes.
doesn't care if they win or lose. He just cares. He knows he's catching 10
You
passes.
guys didn't even talk about the most important thing here: revenge.
Oh, true. Yeah.
Well, this is probably like his 14th different. He was in the division on the Commanders.
No. This is the ultimate revenge. This is the team that cast him out.
Well, again, he got that revenge like 7 different times already. But
And we're going to see an 8th revenge game.
that's true. We actually might. Denny, we're going to see another revenge game on the Eagles side. A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith against their own team. I'm kind of running out of things what to say about them. Where are we even ranking these guys? What are we even saying about them heading into what we know is a tough defensive matchup in the Minnesota Vikings? Jalen Hurts not passing particularly well. Does not seem like a good spot for Hurts to go off.
I hope that A.J. Brown has drafted at least half dozen passive-aggressive social media posts for after this game, because it could be rough. It could be rough here. I also noticed that.
Wait, did he just put a Machiavelli quote over a picture of a JPEG of Garfield? Whatever. All right.
Yeah. Right. I noticed that Devontae Smith's pregame outfits get tighter with every passing week, and I'm worried about him as well. So anyway, it's a bad matchup because here's the thing: the Vikings can be had on the ground. They're giving up the 5th highest rate of rush yards before contact. They're bottom 10 in rushing stuff rate. So I think they profile as the kind of defense where Saquon Barkley can get right against them.
Can have his first good
What
game
color of AJ Brown Patriots jersey should I get? Because he's going to look good in all of them.
Oh man, yeah, I would go with the red, honestly. But
Okay.
yeah, and so wide receivers. Here's another stat. It's just bleak all the way down. Wide receivers collectively are seeing 13 targets per game against the Vikings. What I mean by that is all receivers on a team are seeing 13.
That's like a number a single good receiver puts up in a game.
That's the lowest mark in the league. Eagles over the past 3 weeks have the league's 2nd highest neutral pass rate. Obviously, this has caused great consternation among Eagles faithful, and I believe they will try to seek forgiveness for their sins by establishing the run here. So I see this more of as a Saquon sort of game.
AJ would really pop in that red Patriots jersey. And I think AJ Brown, by the way, has maxed out his cryptic tweeting game in English. And if he's got another level to take it to, he needs to learn Latin.
I think we do need a Latin post. AJ, if you're listening, we could use a little Latin in our lives.
We need a Latin post from AJ Brown.
After you catch one of 5 targets for 20.
How do we feel about Jordan Mason coming off by? I think Aaron Jones was eligible to return this week, and they haven't even spoken about him. It seems the hamstring is not doing well, and it's going to be another week of Jordan Mason. We thought he would totally dominate the backfield. He's played 65% of snaps, but Xavier Scott has 35% of the snaps behind him. How do we feel about Mason coming off by?
Yeah, coming off by, so 2 weeks ago technically, but their most recent game, Mason set season highs in snap share, and he set a season high in route rate, which should help if it holds. I know Xavier Scott, I believe in that game, fumbled and didn't really see the field much through the end of the game. If they end up saying Xavier Scott is not a passing down specialist and he's just a clear breather RB2, I think that should really help pad out potential. I mean, negative game script is maybe unfair. They're 1.5 point underdogs. But if it gets out of hand, or even if just in moments it gets out of hand, they fall behind by 2 scores and they bring it back, for any of those times where they move into a more pass heavy front, I think we could see at least some PPR value from a player who typically doesn't provide that much. And it is a decent spot on the ground in that it's a close game with a backup quarterback playing another team that wants to run the football. He's probably good for 14 plus carries, and maybe he can finally get a catch or two. You're clearly still starting him.
Grinding through a brutal early season schedule, the Chiefs finally get a break with a rare 1 p.m. Eastern home kickoff against the lowly Raiders. Denny Carter, the Chiefs are 2-score favorites as they get back expected number one receiver Rashee Rice after a 6-game suspension. How do we expect Rice's return to shake up Patrick Mahomes' target allocation? How high is too high for Rashee Rice in the rankings?
ESPN's Jeremy Fowler reported this week that it'll be a full go situation for Rashee Rice. There will be no easing into the Kansas City offense. So, you're playing him. I think that you're going to see at least like an 80% route rate against a pretty middling secondary. I don't think it affects Xavier Worthy all that much. He'll still be the gadget guy. But I think it really dings Travis Kelce. And for reasons we talked about during the offseason before we knew that, Rice was going to miss 6 weeks. Kelce has been fine for fantasy because he's been seeing those middle of the field intermediate targets, right? A lot of those go away once Rice is back in the fold. So just be careful with what you do with Kelce. I know it's been a little bit fun, not a lot of fun, but you've had a little fun starting Kelce. Consider your options, I would say, with Rashee Rice coming back.
I'm going to ignore that you called Xavier Worthy a gadget guy,
He's
by the way.
I
just wonder, I feel like Rice's return could just create 2 or 3 new weekly pass attempts, and that it's not necessarily going to be all targets stolen from other players. I think there's going to be some new attempts created.
They're already super pass heavy, man. I don't know.
And they actually are pretty insanely pass heavy. I'm looking at Patrick Mahomes' game log right now. Producer Adam's wondering, Tucker Kraft or Travis Kelce? I have Tucker Kraft higher in the rankings.
I would go Kraft. I'm trying to think of like a good one here. Like Michael Mayer.
Mayer, without even considering it.
No, Kelce without even considering. Mayer's he's a classic zero ball candidate. Oh, he had a good game. That's great.
No, Kyle, were you saying Mayer or Kelce?
He was saying Mayer. I'm saying Kelce.
Oh, it's Mayer.
Kelce might be retired by the end of this game. Rashee Rice is eating his lunch.
Mayer is the ultimate air ball tight end 2 streamer. I don't get it. Powers is out, and they liked him so much last week.
I agree with this line of reasoning that these guys just show up and disappear into the wind like they never existed in the first place. That is also what's going to happen to Travis Kelce.
I'm trying to think of one that would make Pat really
Kelce
mad.
or Harold Fannin Jr.
Oh, Fannin.
Oh my God, grow up, Fannin.
It's still Kelce, but
oh my God, no.
Unfortunately, we have to move on. Anything shaking loose, Kyle, in this Chiefs backfield, or will the 3-man rotation continue until morale improves?
We saw a bit more of a commitment to Isaiah Pacheco last week. He set season highs in snap share, season highs in carry share, albeit season high in total carries is only 12. But hey, that is still a season high as a season high. And this is a spot, there was also a spot last week, so they kind of beat the Lions easily. But this is a spot, if there were ever one, where even the pass-heavy Chiefs won't really be required to do much in the fourth quarter. They could just be giving it to Pacheco to grind out the clock. 10.5-point favorites against this lowly Raiders team. As far as the other backs, obviously the season highs for Isaiah Pacheco meant season lows across the board for Kareem Hunt. It did not change anything for Brashard Smith, who played exactly 6 snaps for the second week in a row. He's caught at least 3 passes in back-to-back games. I don't know how many more passes he can possibly catch on 6 snaps. The answer is technically 3, but he's not doing that.
Denny, with the Raiders, we're starting Ashton Genty. What about Jacoby Myers, who's had some injury issues, actually? Trey Tucker, Michael Mayer. Apparently, everyone's starting Michael Mayer, so we can just, with Michael Mayer's in lineups, we already know that.
Hit him with the stats, Denny. Hit him with the Mayer stats.
How do we feel about the rest of the Raiders? A team that is not playing well at all. And the Chiefs, destroy the run, so they're going to have to pass. This feels like a Geno nightmare spot.
It is. It's going to be real ugly. Don't get cute with Geno, even in Superflex, just seek
just
help
say no
elsewhere.
Just say G, no.
That's right. Say G, no. You're going to get in trouble on Blue Sky for that. Michael Mayer targeted on over 30% of his routes last week. Pat won't tell you that. The media won't tell you that. But so he's in play. But Myers, there was a report this week that the Raiders are kind of maybe open to trading him. He doesn't want to be around anymore.
This might be that time of the year where a Raiders receiver starts kind of faking an injury like Devontae Adams did last year until they get traded. That could be happening with Jacoby Myers.
I think that could be it. So with Brock Bowers out, I was like, well, at least my Myers teams will benefit from this, and that's not been the case. Myers has been targeted on only 18% of his routes with Bowers sideline. He does lead the team in air yards by like this much. It's
wasn't a big this much for the audio listeners. The fingers there was not. You couldn't have fit a third finger between the two.
Yeah, just barely. I honestly, I feel like you could in a 12-team league, like you can probably do better than Jacoby Myers.
I've been thinking about putting Trey Tucker ahead of Jacoby Myers just because they're going to have to be throwing deep this week. It seems like a classic, like Gino and Trey like taking over the game, as they're losing like 34 to 10.
Deep Chris Paul 3 cuts the lead to 60.
Exactly. There's going to be a lot of cutting the lead to 38 between Gino and Trey Tucker this week. So the Raiders
a huge touchdown to cut the deficit to 29 with 2 minutes to go.
Raiders are just in a dark place, and it's going to get darker before it lights up again. Suddenly 3-2 after starting 0-2, the Bears host the scrappy but ultimately harmless Saints as roughly 4.5-point home favorites, Kyle. Rome Odunze isn't necessarily playing poorly, but it's been a while since we got a big fantasy day. But DJ Moore suddenly hobbled, spent the night in the hospital on Monday with a groin injury. Not sure what's going on there. Might that change against the Saints? Can Rome Odunze kind of get back on track, wide receiver 1 track in fantasy?
Yeah, so as far as the DJ Moore front goes, you mentioned he stayed in the hospital. It looked like he got banged up early in the first quarter, but he played nearly every snap. I think that is truly an adrenaline situation where, he went to the hospital after the game.
He had some sort of internal injury. They haven't said what it was, but yeah, it was.
And then he doesn't, they call him day to day, and then he does not, I believe, practice on Wednesday. Hospital stay into Wednesday DNP feels like the combo ends with you not playing on Sunday. So I'm going to say more likely than not, you should plan as if he's out. Maybe it's a pleasant surprise if he is. I probably wouldn't play him either way. He's been kind of dreadfully inefficient this year. He's outside the top 60 wide receivers in yards per route run. How does this affect Rome? Their roles aren't overlapping a ton. There are going to be more targets up for grabs in theory, although I'm not convinced that like Luther Burden should just be playing behind DJ Moore. Obviously, all of Luther Burden's stats are going to look very friendly to him because he subs in for one very fun play. He converts on it, and then they pull him out. But with that caveat aside, he's top 5 in yards after the catch per reception. He's top 5 in yards per route run. I think he should have been playing over DJ Moore this entire season. They're just potentially getting an upgrade over DJ Moore, who's been dreadfully inefficient.
Yeah, they should have maybe worked a little harder to make the DJ Moore thing work, I feel like. Ben Johnson's kind of been like a war with DJ Moore since he arrived. Yeah.
And the backfield stuff is horrible with lining DJ Moore up in the backfield and then like giving him a toss. Like a receiver can't do that stuff. He gets he gets destroyed. He gets lit up every time that happens. And I'm like, leave this guy alone. Let him run some routes, man, please.
And as far as the Rome front goes, I think he's awesome. He's played really well this year. I think there's just going to be these frustrating lulls in his fantasy production because he ranks 72nd in the NFL among wide receivers in catchable target rate. PFF, a big part of this is PFF has charted Caleb Williams with the highest uncatchable throw rate the NFL. Caleb has cleaned up certain parts of his game quite well. The sack taking is completely gone, which was maybe his biggest issue last year, but just the down-to-down consistency still isn't there. And the fact that Rome plays a very high leverage, high A-dot role means there's even more pressure put on the fact that these have to be accurate throws. I think he'll spike again at some point, potentially in this game against a Saints team that gets gashed by long passing plays very often. But then I think we'll probably hit a few more lulls along the way.
Denny, we're getting floor, but seemingly no ceiling from anyone on the Saints. Seriously, so much floor. Every week it's Olave floor, Shaheed floor. It used to be Juwan Johnson floor, even Alvin Kamara floor. Are we going to ever get any actual ceiling here, including from Alvin Kamara? Who of these Saints do we even want to start?
Keep starting Olave. I feel like you could do worse than Rashid Shaheed in like a 14-team league. Kamara saw some increased usage in the pass game last week, which was nice to see because he really wasn't seeing much at all before that. So the Saints, they started off as like fast pace and and pass heavy relatively. That's all gone away. Now they're like medium paced and giga super ultra run heavy. So that just lops off a lot of upside for these guys, including Olave. I did want to note for the Spencer Rattler haters that I podcast with, Spencer Rattler, 74% on target rate this year, 5th best in the league. He did nothing wrong.
Imagine if that ever mattered in fantasy.
He did. No, not in fantasy. I'm just saying in real life. I mean, he's a real life starting quarterback.
Is he? He had more than one touchdown, I think, one time all year. I don't know.
1 in 5 Spencer Rattler.
Here's what I'll say. Better than CJ Stroud.
Right. That's a really good time to take a break.
You got that one out. Break. Go.
You can engage on that. We'll be right back after this. Bijan Robinson and the Falcons continue their primetime march as they travel west to battle with Christian McCaffrey and the 49ers. Coverage of the matchup begins at 7 p.m. Eastern as we take you all the way up to kickoff at Levi Stadium, only on NBC and Peacock. Yeah, Denny, you've got some – I don't know what's going on with you and Spencer Rattler, but it's not healthy. This needs to stop.
I've never watched a Saints game. I wouldn't do it to myself. I'm just telling you, my spreadsheets are telling me a good story about Spencer Rattler. He's improving.
All right,
conceded there.
Yeah, all right, Grandpa.
The rest of it. Yeah.
Let's get you to bed. Fresh off upsetting the Buffalo Bills, who, boy, what an inspiring performance from the Bills on Monday. The Falcons venture west as uncertain underdogs versus an uncertain 49ers supporting cast, Denny. Well, that was a big win for Atlanta, but it wasn't really a convincing one. I didn't even think they played, especially in the second half. They did not play that well. Is this still just a two-man offense in fantasy with Bijan Robinson and Drake London for the Falcons?
It is. I mean, maybe Mooney can get in the mix. What is
going on with Mooney and like McLaurin and all these guys this year? Like every week, like this is the week they're back. Then I wake up like Sunday morning, Mooney ruled out per Fowler. I'm like, what?
I have a theory that these guys are just on Chat GTP constantly, like trying to figure out like what they can do to get back on the field, and it's not working. I would love to see the chat history with between Terry McLaurin and his bot. Anyway,
I hear you. You do not need sports hernia surgery. You absolutely
break something real hard.
Yeah. No, it would say that though, Pat. It would.
I know, it wants to flatter you. It wants to. Yeah.
Right. It would say
technology.
Whatever you do, don't take elderberry from CVS pharmacy. Don't get surgery. So Mooney could get in the mix, but so they put Drake London in the slot much more on Monday night. I'm not going to bore you guys with the numbers, but it's working very well. And that's what they did at the end of last season when Drake London was going berserk with Michael Penix under center. The issue is that the Falcons remain super run heavy, as they should be. Penix remains pretty bad. And so I think it is just Bijan and then and Drake London who can get there. Maybe throw in Algier. I don't know.
We'll say longtime listeners of the show know when Denny is saying the Falcons should be super run heavy, he's not even referring to Bijan Robinson.
No. We knew where that ulterior motive was coming from.
Yeah, guys, listen, I don't get off the couch for much these days, but on that Tyler Algier first quarter touchdown against the Bills, I got off the couch.
Denny, you need to seek help.
I love
professional Algier. Yeah. Seek help. I need help. All my teams are ruined and injured. I would kill for Tyler Algier right now. Kyle, speaking of injured, which 49ers are actually healthy? Who are we starting in fantasy? This 49ers injury situation is about as absurd as I've ever seen. Who is playing for this football team? Surpassed only by the Cardinals this week. Who is actually playing for the 49ers?
None of them. They're not healthy. Hang it up, man. No, I mean, truly, literally none of them are healthy. Who's playing? I would say Brock Purdy is not playing. He was limited in practice, but it was either Lynch or Shanahan said he was specifically very limited in Wednesday's practice. They've already had so many issues, specifically with re-aggravations this year, that he's not playing through very limited on Wednesday. Mac Jones is like a little dinged up with an oblique thing. I assume that means he's going to start anyway. Jawan is out there on the practice field with 9 broken ribs, 14 broken ankles, 2 spines that are dislocated. He's going to end up playing, though, I believe. Ricky Pearsall, on the other hand, was one of those players who re-aggravated something. I don't think he's going to play. George Kittle's the only one that I don't have a strong lean on. He was not activated, designated to return from injured reserve, and is practicing so far in just a limited capacity. My guess is he probably sits one more game. Another spot where the 49ers have been so maligned, specifically, by a lot of injuries, but a lot of them on the offensive side, because, by all accounts, they probably rushed their players back too quickly because they immediately re-aggravated their injuries. I can't imagine they take that approach. Assuming all those things I said hold, you are playing Kendrick Bourne off of back-to-back, specifically 142-yard games, and you are playing Jake Tungus because he dominates targets when he's out there. He plays some facsimile of the George Kittle role.
Did you say, is it Purdy or Mac Jones? Like, who's that quarterback?
It's Jones. I do not think Purdy is playing.
It does seem to be the way the wind is blowing, but talk about keep it locked to rotoworld.com. The 49ers. Shanahan's dying to throw some curveballs, too. He hasn't gotten to throw as many as usual this year. Like, the guys have just been too hurt.
My guess on the curveball is George Kittle activated and then ruled out. That would be a fun little curveball.
That would be extraordinarily Shanny. We can't wait. The Panthers had a stirring Week 6 victory while the Jets sank to a stunning new low in London town, Kyle Dvorchak. That included losing Garrett Wilson to a multi-week knee injury. With Wilson out, can we still stream? Okay, I caught it.
You found the landmine.
Can we still stream Justin Fields? Not Garrett Wilson. We're not streaming an injured Garrett Wilson. And is there literally any Jet worth starting beyond Breece Hall? Josh Reynolds season, ? Mason Taylor season, ? I'm Ron Burgundy, ?
Yeah, that was the landmine that you laid for yourself that I found. This would be in theory if Garrett Wilson was playing a very good matchup for Justin Fields. PFF grades him as like their number 9 quarterback when not pressured specifically. And that's kind of the whole Justin Fields MO, is that if he just gets to sit back there and process the game at his speed, he's got the arm to make any throw. It's just that he does not, like, the whole objective when you play Fields is let's see how fast he can process. And you immediately find out it's not that fast. The Panthers have the lowest pressure rate in the NFL. They give you time to throw. Mm-hmm. What do you do with time to throw when Tyler Johnson and Arian Smith and Alan Lazard are your top wide receivers? Maybe specifically Arian Smith.
Because Josh Reynolds is hurt also, by the way. Like, is he
sorry, that was, I guess, something I left out. I believe he was spotted on the practice field Thursday. He was dealing with a hip injury. He did not practice Wednesday. I didn't see the official report yet. He was at least maybe out there on Thursday. He could play. He's had kind of this 3-catch-ish floor over the past few weeks. It kind of vaguely makes him playable. Beyond that, I'm not considering playing another wide receiver. If he doesn't play, I just wouldn't even spin the roulette wheel on the wide receiver 3-4s that they'll be trotting out as their wide receiver 1-2s. I do think you can spin the wheel on Mason Taylor. Total gigabusto last week. I believe 1 catch for 6 yards or something. But in the previous 3 weeks, he had 25 combined targets. And now he was already playing what is we need him to be our wide receiver 2. Now he can play that we need him to be our wide receiver 1 role. I'm not guaranteeing that he plays that role. It didn't seem like they were interested in using him as the number 2 last week. But at tight end, there's a chance you're your team's number 1 receiver. That guy is almost immediately a tight end 1, even if the floor still kind of sucks.
I have a good stat for Mason Taylor purposes. The Panthers are giving up about 7.5 targets per game to the tight end position, and the Panthers allow the 4th highest completion rate over expected on throws between 1 and 10 yards, and that's Mason's wheelhouse.
He had 2 great games before the huge dud last week. So hopefully Mason Taylor gets back on track. 14 team leagues. People will need to start Jets receivers. It appears to be Josh Reynolds, but if he doesn't play, I don't know. I'd probably say Tyler Johnson.
Tyler Johnson.
Stuff in the past. Arian Smith's been on the team for a while, but I don't know what that means. Denny, Rico Dowdle is the biggest story in fantasy football. We've talked about a lot this week. But Chuba Hubbard poised to return after 2 weeks on the sidelines. I'd say the answer to this is yes. Can we still fire Dowdle up as a RB2, aka top 24 option?
Yeah, for a couple reasons. One is that Carolina has recently gone Giga Ultra run heavy, 13% below their expected pass rate over the past 2 weeks. The Jets are something of a run funnel. They can be run on. I think the Panthers will try to do that. So that means that Dowdle, I think, could still see 15 touches here with some good game script, even if Chuba Hubbard plays. Jeremy Fowler of ESPN reported this week that instead of the situation where Hubbard plays 2 series and then Dowdle plays 1, that they might just go back and forth now. They might just rotate series. So as for me, I played Dowdle. I don't know about Chuba Hubbard.
Chuba. I think Chuba is still a flex to be, because I think both guys are in probably 12 to 15 touch floor this week. They're going to run the ball like over 40 times.
They're going to run it a lot. Yeah.
They're going to go back to like Darnold mode when Steve Wilkes was the interim coach, is what I think the kind of offense we're going to see. They got to trade one of these guys. Like, you're a rebuilding team. Maybe trade both of them. I don't know.
They're going to run to the point where I kind of worry about Justin Fields, because it's like, the Jets might only run like 40 plays, and that's very, very low.
Yeah, this is what a crazy, unfortunate situation. If you were riding Rico, say like I was, and then everyone else in your team was hurt, but I am still starting Rico. Of course, I'm no longer planning on 200 yards from scrimmage. I used to just plan on 200 yards from scrimmage.
Right, used to project them. I've seen your projections.
Jalen Coker, by the way, expected back for the Panthers, but for all the reasons Denny just laid out, going to be super run heavy. We can re-add Coker. He's probably cut in a lot of leagues. Definitely, even in 14-team leagues, you might have a hard time starting him this week. Hosting the Green Bay Packers, the Whose fans will easily take over the stadium. It's unclear who the Cardinals will be starting at quarterback, Denny. It appears like it'll be Kyler Murray. Is that even good news? Like, I don't know. And what's the state of Marvin Harrison, Zay Jones? None of these guys, all three of these guys might sit out this game. This is totally ridiculous and absurd injury situation in Arizona. Would Kyler starting even be good news? What's the status of Marvin? What's the status of Zay Jones, who was back in our lives last week?
Look, I'm not just saying this like for a bit or for fun, but like the numbers, the spreadsheets, like they grab you by the shirt collar and they say Jacoby Brissett is better than Kyler Murray, at least for fantasy, at least maybe in actual real life football. And here's a stat that jumped out at me. Kyler Murray this season is averaging 185 passing air yards per game, so 185. Jacoby Brissett in week 6 led all quarterbacks in the NFL with 395 air yards. That's a totally different situation for everybody in this offense. You had two guys, McBride and Zay Jones, eclipse 100 air yards in this game. That would never, ever, ever happen with Kyler Murray. So for fantasy purposes, I hope that Brissett starts. It doesn't look like that's going to be the case. So you're back to little checkdowns. You're back to dink and dunks. You're back to fantasy unfriendly play. And so that leaves Kyler Murray and pretty much nobody else. Zay Jones is struggling with an injury. We're going to have to see if he plays. Greg Dortch, I suppose, would be in the mix. But I'm much more excited about everybody in this offense if Jacoby Brissett. My theory, and I feel like it's well-founded, is that MHJ would be a top 10 fantasy receiver if Jacoby Brissett were to start for the rest of the season.
Well, Brissett loves to hang in the pocket, so he would wait. Marvin Harrison Jr. sometimes takes a little bit of time to get open. It would be good from that perspective. Listen, I'm an avowed Kyler doubter.
Doesn't sound like it. We're going to kick you out of the haters fan club.
I even said doubter instead of hater. Let's be real, I'm a hater.
You are.
One game of Jacoby Brissett isn't enough to convince me, I'll say. But I also say Kyler, talk about a rug puller. Like, hey, he's limited all week, then he just doesn't play. Like,
okay, well, I actually have an update on this. Like you said, he is quote practicing, but as of Thursday, he was working with the practice squad wide receivers, and Jacoby Brissett and I believe this is Keaton Slovis both worked with the actual wide, like the starting or at least on the roster wide receivers. To me, that's very clearly just like, give him some reps, but we are not planning on it as if he is the starter. I mean, if you were planning on it as if he was the starter, he would be thrown to the starters. So I think they're ramping him up to playing next week at most.
Let me be clear. I very much want to believe Denny's theory that Jacoby's better, and I hope he gets a second start so we can see how this Cardinals offense look. We saw how it looked in the backfield last week. It was Michael Carter and Bam Knight. Kyle, almost 50-50 down the middle, especially after Amari DiMercato injured his ankle. He has yet to resume practicing. Now, this could be trail mode for the Cardinals. They were playing from behind last week. It was a close game with the Colts. If we get more trail mode, does that maybe vault Michael Carter ahead of Bam Knight, who had like a modest week 6 advantage? How do you break this down?
Yeah, I think you lined up their roles relatively well. We did get the Bam Knight takeover in terms of carries, and by takeover, I mean he played a 1A role, you'd call it. He outcarried Michael Carter 11-8, but Michael Carter ran, I think it was over 40% of the routes. He took on what we would have called a week or two ago, the Amari DiMercato role, and DiMercato just doesn't look like he's going to play this week. As you pointed out, if they're going to be losing this game, maybe that puts Michael Carter in a position to give you some PPR points, but I'm just not really convinced that that's something worth chasing. I think you're more likely to get a decent fantasy output if they just play a close game, they run a decent amount because they have their backup quarterback under center, and Bam Knight gets basically what he did last week, 11 carries, doesn't have to be efficient. I believe he found the end zone. You hope he does that again.
Yeah, they're both RB3s. This is not like a Charger situation where Kamani at all. After what he did last week, it's an RB2 cameo. Knight, Carter, both firm RB3s, not particularly high upside RB3s. The Packers receiver thing has just gotten even more confusing because Christian Watson could be coming back from his knee injury.
Yeah.
Are we starting any of these 1 million Green Bay Packers wide receivers? Are we starting Savion Williams? Let's start there.
I mean, there's so many.
Let me be clear. That was a joke.
There are many problems with how to use these Packers receivers in fantasy. The Packers are averaging a total of 218 air yards per game. That's one of the lowest marks in the league. Last week, Matthew Golden led the team with a 37% air yard share, but that's not really a big deal since there's just not that much to go around. Romeo Doubs had an 85% route rate last week. All the other Green Bay receivers were in the 50 to 60% route rate range. It's ugly. It's ugly. This team does not want to throw the ball. They just want to establish it. It just makes me wonder, makes me question myself. Why didn't I just take Josh Jacobs in every draft? I mean,
because we did that last year and it was fine. That was the classic. I'd rather try to find the next Josh Jacobs than have to endure another year of Josh Jacobs.
You're totally misremembering last year.
Well, I think he's
dominated.
I know, that's what I'm saying. Like, that was fine. Like, I'd rather be wrong on someone else the second time than be right on Josh Jacobs twice, is what I'm saying.
Well, anyway.
Oh, well, congratulations. I predicted Josh Jacobs was good. I want to live life to the fullest, all right? Anyone can predict Josh Jacobs.
Live life to the fullest, meaning I took Xavier Worthy or Ladd McConkey.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's been fun.
Listen, Xavier Worthy, producer Ad and I were talking about earlier today. We're bullish on Worthy down the stretch this season. Suddenly first place. Oh my God, you got the binoculars again. Suddenly in first place in the AFC East, the Patriots head south to Nashville as touchdown favorites against the Titans team. What else would they be doing? Changing coaches, Kyle Dvorchak. We know you're an avowed Drake May slappy, but now the whole football world is coming around to your position with Jalen Hurts and company. So many of the guys in the mid-range QB1 struggling. Is May surging into the top 3 at quarterback for a game where, let's be clear, Mike Vrabel, you talk about revenge games, Mike Vrabel against the Titans. This one takes the cake.
Yeah, this is like a classic. He, instead of when Jameis Winston handed off to Jamal Williams, he called off the kneel like 2 years ago with the Saints and was like, go ahead, score Jamal, because they all love Jamal and they want him to score. You're going to have Mike Vrabel out there. He might line up a tight end. Like, let's get one more on the board as they're up 30. So you said top 3. And technically, I think the answer to that question is no. Number 1 is Allen.
I thought you were a Drake May supporter.
Number 2, I think, is Mahomes right now. I'm still going to put Daniels ahead, specifically for the rushing. Hopefully, within the next week or 2, they get Terry McLaurin back. I mean, this game, they don't need him back. They're going to drop a ton of points anyways. 4, I put him at QB4. Right now, he is the number 3 quarterback in EPA per play, but he has nearly 40 more dropbacks than the 2 quarterbacks ahead of him, those being Jordan Love and Sam Darnold. He's the number 1 quarterback in total EPA per game, which is to say that in terms of the raw output of what he's giving his team in terms of success, he is giving his team more than any other quarterback in the NFL right now. I don't know if he's quite the best quarterback, but if I'm starting my franchise, like, he's the 4th or 5th guy I'd pick. With some quarterbacks banged up and underperforming, as you mentioned, like Jalen Hurts underperforming right now, he is, I think, a strong argument for the QB3. I broke my tie to Daniels. I think, frankly, you could break the tie to May, and I'd still be fine with it.
Run it up, Mikey. Run it up. Denny, that includes the wide receivers. That Pop Douglas is apparently back in our lives. What is going on with the New England wideouts? Diggs quieted off in week 6 after his revenge-fueled hysteria in week 5, but he's back for another revenge game job this week. Kayshon Boutte popped back up last week. State of the Pats wideouts.
Yeah, so last week against the Saints, I think we saw the potential downside of Stefon Diggs' route rate. he's still running around 65% of the routes in this offense. And so, when he's targeted on 30 or 35% of those routes, it can work like really well, like it did against Buffalo and then the week before that. But when he's targeted on only 11% of those routes, like he was last week against the Saints, it doesn't work as well. So the route rate, I think, is still like a little bit of an issue for Diggs's weekly predictability for fantasy purposes. I have this on Kayshon Boutte. This is from the regression files, if I may read it to the children, the audience.
Mike.
That was weird. So Boutte against the Saints did that weird thing where a player turns 8 expected fantasy points into 26 actual fantasy points. He did see 31% of the Patriots air yards and was targeted on 24% of his routes, but that came out of nowhere because over the 3 previous games, he had only been targeted on 10% of his routes. I don't know if you can be anything close to confident in starting him, but the Patriots are probably going to score a lot of points against a disastrous Titans team, and I think that Mike Vrabel is going to want to hit triple digits.
I do legitimately think, not even as a bit, they will try to run up the score. And so maybe if you're deciding with Patriots, even in their backfield, I mean, it's the same stuff in the Pats back. Like nothing's changed, right? Is it a status quo if we're telling our listeners?
Yeah, I had a couple things. Stevenson still kind of dominating rushing attempts. I did want to mention that the Titans allow the 3rd highest rate of rush yards before contact, so it's quietly a good matchup. If that means much to you, it makes me. I have Stevenson in one league, down pretty bad. I feel like he has something of an upside here because of the environment and the fact that the Patriots are a run first, nominally run first team. Like they're not dropping back and throwing it at a really high rate. If you're looking at pass rate over expected, neutral pass rate, stuff like that.
Kyle, Denny and I talked about it probably too long on Tuesday, the Tennessee Titans. Calvin Ridley sidelined. Are we getting any of these guys in a 12-team league lineups? Tajay Spears actually doubled up Tony Pollard in snap percentage last week. Maybe not quite doubled up. Don't quote me on that, but either way.
He was, I mean, in terms of if you were just measuring by snaps, he would be what you would call the RB1. It was primarily, though, because they are forced when you lose a game by a lot every single week to pass the football a lot, and he was the clear passing downs back. He ran 59% of the routes. Tony Pollard didn't come close to that. He ran 30% of the routes, and you got 60% of the snaps versus 40% of the snaps for Tony Pollard, but we still saw Pollard get 2/3 of the actual carries. So he's just has a more specialized role now, but he wasn't really earning targets in the first place. To me, the fact this backfield has now completely split into guy who only catches passes, but the quarterback isn't a check down guy, and guy who only runs the football, and the quarterback is not going to put them in positive game script, you can just throw the backfield out. Calvin Ridley doesn't look like he's going to play. We can just throw the wide receivers out. Like, do you really want to play Van Jefferson wide receiver 1 for Cam Ward? No, I don't think so. And beyond that, Chego Okonkwo's role has kind of waxed and waned. They've talked about getting Gunnar Helm more involved, but he still seems capable. I believe he did last week of getting like a 6-catch, tight end, 14 PPR finish. But you can even do better than him off of the waiver wire too. So I genuinely think in a 12-team league, there are 0 Titans. In that like 14 deeper flex, you're still going to get all of whatever carries they have. You could play Pollard, I guess.
And we'll be right back after this. Here comes the history, the tradition, the spectacle, the fight. It's another chapter of USC Notre Dame, and it will be written on Saturday night, and you can see it on NBC and Peacock. Coverage begins at 7 p.m. Eastern as we lead you up to kickoff in South Bend. Boy, someone's getting exposed. I can say that. When USC and Notre Dame square off, someone gets exposed. It's going to be a very, very interesting game. I'm hoping Mizzou does not get exposed against Auburn, by the way. The Texans arrive off bye and a badly needed Week 5 victory, Denny, as field goal dogs, quote unquote, in Seattle. At this point, is it safe to say nothing is changing in the Seahawks backfield? And how is A.J. Barner looking as a streamer at tight end?
Just start with the backfield. So neither Charbonnet nor Walker are involved in the pass game at all here in Seattle.
Neither were good.
But the Seahawks target the running back position at a 10% rate. So that's the lowest rate in the NFL. I actually wrote up both guys in the regression files because I had a little section on inside the 10 usage for running backs. And just wanted to note this. Charbonnet has 11 inside the 10 rushes this year. He scored 3 touchdowns on those. Walker has 5 inside the 10 rushes. He scored 2 touchdowns on those. And yet Charbonnet keeps that job.
And yet Charbonnet returned.
So I do think for both guys, you're basically hoping for a touchdown here. And you probably should try to find ways not to play them. As for Barner, running about 60% of the routes, nothing really impressive. Nothing jumps off the screen. It's not a good matchup for tight ends this week. I think you could probably do better off the waiver wire. I actually am weirdly fascinated in Noah Fant, which I know is on Thursday, but
yeah, it's because Mike there.
There.
That's interesting. That'll be a good one to audit on Friday because that would be nice. I mean, we actually got a good game. I would approve of that. And by the way,
yeah, if Noah Fant's popping off, I bet it's a great game. That's what you want.
If you're a Twitter user, by the way, stop yelling at Mike McDonald. It only makes his backfield opinions worse. By the way, does this profile is a Marks or Chubb game, Kyle Dvorchak for Houston?
I mean, I would rank them in order of which type of game it profiles most for. Neither. Marks, because we saw I believe they came off bye. So technically 2 weeks ago, we saw in their most recent game, Chubb went back to being the lead back, out-carried Marks 11-7. They still had Woody Marks operating as the passing downs back. And in a game in which they're 3-point underdogs on the road, especially when that is the player who has more juice, I'll play the passing downs back if you were forcing me to pick one. But it's similar, or at least in the same vein of the Tajay Spears problem, where I don't think they're going to be putting up a ton of points. It's a good Seahawks defense, and they're road underdogs to that defense. I don't think they're putting up a ton of points. I'm just getting the pass catching work and some carries from Woody Marks. There are better plays to be had, but maybe, who knows? This could be a spot like now, 3 weeks ago, where they again try to make Woody Marks their lead back, which they should be doing, I think. I think he's looked better so far than Nick Chubb, but it's another situation where you kind of have to see it to believe it. Albeit you can at least maybe pick up a few PPR points if Marks continues to play that passing downs role.
A 25,000 word Wikipedia entry on the Tajay Spears problem is being heavily edited at right this moment. The king-slaying New York Giants head west to Denver as touchdown underdogs, Kyle. Has Jackson Dart shown enough as a dual threat that he finally has to be taken seriously as a QB1? I have him ranked on the borderline this week. I have him one spot ahead of Bo Nix. Is this crazy? Is this where Jackson Dart belongs?
I think he is still fringes of what you would call the mono threat because he's not doing a ton as a passer. I believe his passing yards high right now is like 206 or 202. With that being said, last week against the Eagles was by far his best performance as a passer, 8.6 adjusted yards per attempt. The week before, he was at 3.8. He was in the sixes the week before that. If we saw that version of Dart going forward, he would not be a mono threat. He didn't pass a ton in terms of volume last week, but super efficient. And I think we should expect him to get more efficient as he gets his legs under him, but he literally has incredible legs under him. He became just the third quarterback in NFL history to rush for 50 yards in their first 3 starts. The others are Lamar Jackson and Jalen Hurts. Like, he is putting up, as far as rookies in their first games go, really good rushing numbers. So good that I actually think you can maybe write off some of the fact that he's not passing as good as other QB1s. I think he's in the top 12, albeit just barely.
Cam Newton, what are you going to say, Denny?
I'm so sorry, but it's a miserable matchup. And we saw what the Broncos did to another dual threat guy last week in Justin Fields. I just wanted to mention this as far as the rushing. Jackson Dart has a 23% scramble rate against man coverage this year, and the Broncos play man at a league high rate. So we could see like kind of a crazy number of rushes. I'm actually worried for Jackson Dart. I feel like he needs to take it easy and be careful in this.
He's already taking. This is the level of hits he's taking. Is coach is coming to the blue injury tent, trying to physically remove him as he's getting a concussion.
His teammates are storming the tent.
Yeah, they're storming the tent, trying to get him out of it. Not a great sign for how many hits he's been taking.
Do you have a Cam Newton thing? I've been doing Cam Newton discourse in group chats, and you said something about Cam Newton before we cut you off.
Well, yeah, he's looking. They're using him like Cam Newton. Cam Newton, I think, was passing a little more as a rookie.
He was. I believe Cam Newton opened his career with 2 400-yard games. Like
he did, which was rather famous stat, actually. So I tried to back off the Newton thing, but they're using him like Newton.
Physically, like that sort of big dude run into other dudes' faces. They're actually kind of using him like that. That's not the worst comp.
Speaking of that, that's what Cam Scadaboo is doing, Denny. Are we starting any Giants beyond Scadaboo and Wan'Dale Robinson? How high is too high for Cam Scadaboo?
I think you have to be a little bit careful on Scadaboo. I mean, you're starting him. If you drafted him, you've already got your money's worth, and you're going to run into tough matchups sometimes. That's what you have here. Denver's allowing the 6th lowest rate of rush yards before contact this season, 8th best in rushing success rate allowed. Dart is not really checking down, 8% check down rate this season, one of the lowest in the league. I think that Scadaboo is a little more touchdown dependent than we would like to think, because
he definitely is, because he's not efficient at all.
Well, what I mean is with Russ, we had 6 targets locked in, maybe even 8 targets depending on game script for Scadaboo. We don't have that now with Dart, so you're going to have to depend on it. I mean, the vibes are good, it's fun. I just think Giants could just be destroyed here. This Broncos defense is for real.
I don't know if the Broncos offense is good enough to destroy anyone at this point.
I was going to say that too. Broncos destructions are 17-6. They don't have the horses on offense to go race another team.
Yeah, I mention the Broncos exist. That's kind of where we're at with them. J.K. Dobbins, fine. Yeah, Cortland Sutton, great.
Just some matchup stuff real quick. The Giants are facing the league's highest pass rate over expected. The Giants have pressured the passer on only 37% of their snaps this bottom half, and they're going up against an elite Denver offensive line. I think it's a quietly good spot for Bo Nix and the pass catchers here.
So Bo Nix has been very quiet this year.
You have to listen, and you have to lean in and listen, but I think you can hear it.
He's liking his silence and solitude. One top 10 performance all year for Bo Nix, by the way. Looking very strongly, and hopefully having a second. You know what? It's been a quiet Atlantic hurricane season so far, guys. With those Lake Erie hurricanes are kicking up right on schedule. This is about the time of year where football becomes unplayable outdoors in Cleveland, Ohio. And apparently that's happening this week. I did not know this before the show started. Thankfully, Adam had the tidbit for me. The total is all the way down to 36.5 for the Dolphins' visit to Cleveland. They thought they were getting away from hurricane season. But it's 50 to 60 mile an hour winds, tropical depression, rain expected in Cleveland. So 2 teams that were already, Denny, having an implode off. They're meeting up with the home team slightly favored, unplayable conditions. This is a big preamble for what is the state of the Darren Waller scam? Can you play anyone in this game?
Can you imagine Tua throwing into a 50 mile an hour wind? I mean, the ball might go backward.
It actually might. Same with Carson Wentz. I would love to see Wentz do that.
It's concerning. Am I frozen?
No. Denny. You wish you were frozen. You're about to say to play Darren Waller, but tell us about Darren Waller.
Look, Waller's getting away. He got away with it last week. He was only targeted on 11% of his routes. Overall, he's been targeted on 19% of his routes, which is fine. But I had him in the regression files 2 weeks ago for a dang reason, and people got really upset about it.
And then he scored another touchdown?
And they were like, well, he's going to score a touchdown every week. And I was like, no, he's not. And then he did. I don't know. Michael Mayer over Waller?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Michael Mayer is like a textbook rug pull. Denny has disappeared. He's so disgusted. He's been removed.
He threw a little smoke bomb.
Yeah, he did. But absolutely not, Denny. We're out of time. Almost anyway. We're out of Denny. So, Kyle, final question. Is Harold Fannin the only startable Brown if David Njoku is sidelined? David Njoku not practicing right now with his knee injury.
Yeah, we're looking at 50 to 60 mile an hour winds here. Dude, Dylan Gabriel ain't thrown a single catchable pass to Jerry Jeudy. And the Fannin ADOT, which has kind of been a problem at points this year, in that if you have 6 targets and 36 air yards, as cool as Fannin is, there's only so much you can do with that for fantasy purposes. It will probably work to his advantage in this game because Dylan Gabriel has been one of the least aggressive deep throwers in the NFL this year. And that was his profile coming out of college too. He was a good deep thrower. He's efficient, but it very much reminded me of Tua, that you choose your spots well and you do not choose many of them. And that's what he was in college. That's what he's been in the NFL. I think we're just getting a sickening amount of Harold Fannin targets and Quinshon Judkins carries. Those are the 2 things we're getting in this game.
I do agree with that. Harold Fannin, top 10 tight end, not much of a ceiling, just really, really high floor for Harold Fannin. We apologize for the technical difficulties with Denny. Thankfully, they occurred at the literal very end of the show. Check out Denny's regression files. Check out his funnel report. Check out his Friday live chat at 1 p.m. Eastern on the NFL on NBC YouTube page. Check out Kyle's 10 facts. Check out his start and sit 'em. Check out my ranks. Check out every episode of the Rotoworld Football Show. For Denny, for Kyle, I'm Pat. Thank you so much for listening. We'll talk to you on Sunday.